Hi everybody, welcome back to my mini homestead. It's a bit cold outside, so I am inside doing sugar cookies, and for this video I'm actually going to show you how to flood, and we're going to start flooding on Christmas mittens, and then in the next video I'll actually show you how I decorate those with piping consistency icing. So let me show you what the cookies are going to look like when they're done. So here's our mittens that we're actually going to work on making. We're not going to cover the poinsettias. My mom made those. I did all the decorating, but let's get going on the video, and I'm going to teach you how I flood cookies, and I think it works out perfect every time. All right, let's get to it. This Christmas, my niece wanted to make sugar cookies for all of her clients, and she's coming up for the weekend, but I knew there just wouldn't be time to get it all done with baking them and decorating them, etc. So I made cookies for her, and I have 140 total. She'll get about 80 of those. So what I've got here is I've got candy cane cookies, sugar cookies. So right there is my dehydrator. I don't plan on using it for the cookies because I've got time, but I use this as a storage rack. So there's 7 trays in here. So I'll just do the flooding on my cookies and the cuffs of the mittens, and then I'll just store them in here and let them go overnight so they get all dry, and I can start with the fancy work on them. So this is my icing, and what I'll do is I will put the recipe for my cookies and for the icing down below. I have tweaked a recipe that I've had, made it the way that I want it, and so it'll be below. And this, I put in some doTERRA peppermint essential oil to give it a bit of a pep. It's a really nice. I'm not a peppermint fan, but I like that, and I don't mind this icing at all. So I'm going to put this in a bag, and I'm going to use a star tip. Where did I put my, oh yeah. So my bag is already in here. So I've got a very fine star tip, and I'm going to use that for the cuff of the mittens. So I'm going to get that filled up, and then I will show you what I'm doing. I've got my icing bag done. I need to put my glasses on so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm just going to start at the edge and with the little star. I'm just going to make my little cuff for the mittens. So I'm just going to do all these cookies, and oh, I've got somebody that's outside that wants inside, so I'll have to go let Missy and Nugget in. We'll just get this one done. I don't want to break it part ways. And there we go. So that's what the cuff is going to look like. We have 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 16. So I've got 20 of the mittens. So I'm going to keep working, get these all done, get them put away to dry, and then I'll show you what I'm going to do with the flooding. What I'm doing now is making my flood icing, and this is what I'm going to flood the mittens with. And it has to be the consistency. When you draw a line through it, it'll close back up in about 15 seconds, or a count of 15. I shouldn't say 15 seconds. So it takes a little bit of practice, I find. And I'm using a spray bottle because I can control the amount of water that goes in here. So, and you can see it's starting to get thinner, right? And this is probably, well, no, it's too thin for piping. A little thicker than this will work for piping. Which reminds me, probably should have kept some for piping. See, is that going to disappear? Is that going to stay? So what I'm doing is down here where these lines are, I'm just checking to see if that's going to, nope, it's starting to sink in. So this is not good for piping. So, and like I said, you get used to this, you get for the feel of it. And if you get it too thin or too runny, you can always just add more icing to it. I've got more made. So here, I'm just gonna sort of smooth it out and draw a line through it. And then you would count to 15, and if it goes flat, then you have enough, but I know it's not there. So we'll just add some more water and keep mixing it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm probably gonna speed it up just so that you don't have to, and I'm trying to get air bubbles out of it at the same time. So I'm gonna speed it up till I get to the right consistency, and we'll go from there. So what I'm doing now is I'm just working out those air bubbles, but you can see how it's getting thinner, more runny. So I'm going to draw a line through it and then count. So I'm at 15, so that's not good enough. So now I'm just going to do one squirt at a time, because it's really easy to go from the right consistency or just about there and skip right over it and get it. So basically what flooding is you want it to hit your cookie and spread out, but we don't want it to go over the edges. So because I'm not going to pipe an edge around my cookie, I want this to do both jobs. So let's draw a line through it, and then I'm just going to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. You can see it's almost. So give it a little bit more. And let's do it again. So you want to make sure you get that water mixed in there really well, or you'll have some parts that are runny and the consistency you want, and other parts that are going to be stiff, and it just makes it harder when you're doing your cookies. So again, I'm just going to smooth it out, and you can see the air bubbles. I'm trying to get rid of those, and I'm going to go through it. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and you can still see a bit of a line. Let's go again. You have to be really patient when you do this, and just know that it is going to take time, and if you rush it, then you go from, like I said, from too thick to too runny. Okay, so I always like to sort of spread it out and then draw a line through it and see what happens. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Still not quite right. And this is what I mean. You have to take it slow. So, because the problem is you never start off with the same amount of icing, because you might have a little bowl with just a little bit of icing in it, and one squirt's going to take it from too stiff to too runny. And where a bowl like this, I'm having to add water to it multiple times because I've got quite a bit of icing in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So you can still see the line there, and you can see a whole bunch of air bubbles. So I'm going to try to pop some of those out of there, because if you have air bubbles here, you're going to have air bubbles when you're putting it onto your cookies, and then you're having to poke all those holes, and that's from whipping it quickly. So, and you can see it's really getting smoother. So now another thing you can do is you can just sort of bounce your bowl, and that's going to bring the bubbles to the top of the surface. You can see them all coming up. Let's see if we've hit our 15 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I still see that line. Okay. I mean, look at the bubbles. That's just from banging it. It'll start to bring those bubbles to the surface. So I'm hoping this is the last squirt. So this time I'm going to do it fairly slowly so I don't incorporate a whole lot of bubbles back into my icing. And you can see it. Okay, so let's smooth it out. I'm going to just kind of so I'm not worried about the bubbles right now. And through. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I'm just going to turn it. Nope, still see a line. And if it's too thick, it just does not spread out on your cookies good. But you can see from what we started with, here, let me show you. I've got more icing. This is what I started with, and this is where I'm getting to. So a big difference. You can see the big bubble there. So let me just take, I've got what we call scribe tools, and this is what I'm going to use on my cookie as well. And you just sort of poke the holes. All right, let's give it a couple more stirs. Smooth it out. And then put my line through it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I think one more squirt because I can see the line. I know when I was first watching different people on YouTube do this, I'm like, but I need to see the whole thing. So it may be long, but you're going to see the whole thing. Okay, smooth it out. Give a couple taps, and then I'm going to draw my line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Ah! All right. See, like I said, you have to be patient when you're doing this. You can't rush it. And don't think, okay, that's good enough, because trust me, it won't be. So let's just... On these little spatulas that I have here, I picked these up at Dollarama. That's here in Canada. I can't remember if it's in the States or not. So you can also see when it goes across the top, how long is it going to take it to incorporate. So let's draw my line again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, I think I'm good with that. I'm just going to do my drizzle test. So take some icing and across the top. And how long is it going to take? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, we've got it. I'm just going to work on this and take the bubbles out of it, do some banging, and then I'll get it into a bag and I'll show you how I flood the cookies. I thought I'd show you quickly. You can see all the bubbles that are in here now, and some of them are bigger. When we get them in the icing bag, I will also sort of massage the icing to get rid of these bubbles. But I mean, you can also sit in front of the TV and just poke bubbles if you want, but I don't have time. But you can see there they all come. But the less you have in your bag, then the less you're going to be doing this on top of your cookies. All right. And I always keep a wet cloth handy to wipe up icing. All right. I've got my icing in here, hoping I got the right consistency. And what I'm doing right now is I'm just massaging it. And that'll help get air bubbles out of it. So you just gently massage your bag and it'll push the air bubbles out. So just keep working it until you think you're good enough. And then you're usually not good enough. And then I have these and I love them. And they're different colors. So I will actually use one color for piping and I will use one color for flooding. It makes it so much easier. And just twist your bag. And then you pull it around and over top of that little arrow and it locks it in place. And that way when you're not using your bag, you can set it aside. So I'm going to show you another trick. I have a glass with a piece of wet paper towel in it, and then I will put my bag in there, and because it's wet, the tip of it won't dry out. Now I haven't cut this yet, so let's do that. And I want to take just a bit off so it doesn't come out too fast. I usually have paper that I'm doing this on. Ah, that looks really good. Okay. Let's grab a cookie. So there's my tray of cookies. So I'm just going to set it to the side and that's what we're going to work off of. And there we go. And you can see my icing is dripping out. So what I'm going to do is start on an edge and just let it come down and sort of let it fall. And turn slowly. Now a lot of people do this with two hands, and I'll show you that in a minute. It's going to depend on how steady you are with your hands. And because this is a thicker icing, I figured I was okay. So what a lot of people do is they'll hold their hand like that and then guide it. You just let the icing fall. I don't do that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill it in. You want to be careful that you don't push it over the edge. And you just do whatever works for you. So I'm just going to let it fill in down here. So, and the reason I'm flooding is I want a nice base for the techniques that I'm going to do. And I am going to do piping on top of these cookies. So you can also just follow along the edge. I do that half the time. And then half of the time I just sort of squeeze it out. And so you want enough on here. All right, and then I'm gonna just put it in my cup to keep it from going hard. And then this is where you start using your scribe. And you can move your icing out towards the edge. So see here how it's going out farther towards the edge? I'm really pleased with the consistency of this icing. So you just have to be patient and work at it. And I'm just trying to get it nice round. So I'm going to speed this up and you can continue to watch. And we'll get, and what you will know is I don't have a lot of air bubbles. So from banging the bowl and getting the air bubbles to the top and massaging my icing bag has taken care of a lot of the bubbles. And we'll just see if we have any that show up. Oh, so much for fast forwarding because I'm almost done here. So you just, like I said, you do circles and just sort of push it out to the side. And it will absorb right into the edge. See? Now, I've got my washcloth here, so I can just wipe that off. I'm just going to give it a quick look. And the other thing you can do is you can give it a little bang to get bubbles to come to the surface because you don't want to have surprises after the fact. So like right here, I see a little bump. I'm just going to go in there, and hopefully it's gone. But because we are going to do piping on top, we can get rid of that. Now, if you get too far over the edge, you can use your finger to pull it back in. But this one I am really happy with. I think it looks really good. So I'm going to continue and do this because I've got 20 cookies to do. So this cookie has a couple of issues. You can see right here, there's air bubbles right there. So I want to pick those out Make sure it's done. And then, oops, still don't have it. Sometimes it takes some work. And then right here, it's going down a bit far, so I can actually use this and just sort of pull it back up and into my cookie so I don't lose that definition. And then I'm just going to push that over a bit more. And I mean, a lot of people leave, you know, like 1/8 of an inch on the outside of their cookies. I like to take mine as close to the edge as I can. But it's for your preference, right? Whatever you prefer to do. And then you'll see that the cookie just starts to settle. But you know, pay attention to where you might have air bubbles, because there's nothing worse than an air bubble showing up on your cookie. Give it a few bangs. And I don't know if that is or isn't, but I'm just going to give it a pop. But the icing is the right consistency, that it will just go back in to where it needs to go. So we'll just let that will settle down as it sits on the tray. So I wanted to show you this because here I didn't get it right there. So I can take my icing bag back in here and just sort of push it out. Now you need to be careful because sometimes your cookies aren't always flat and you don't want it to run down a hill and off. So again, just getting into all the little nooks and crannies here where the ruffle is, because I just want it to flow into that really well. And then I'm just going to start flattening my cookie again. And you can always add more icing to your cookie. And the more you do it, the better you'll be able to gauge how much icing you actually need to get on that cookie. So you got to figure out what works for you. You know, you watch all of us, figure it out what works for you, and then that's what you do. So there's no one way of doing this. There's lots of us that do this, and we all do it a bit different. Well, not all. I mean, some of us do the exact same technique, but you tweak it so it works for what you want. All right, I'm going to continue doing this, and we'll be back. Now, I don't know if you can see, but I got a few little divots, or what I call divots. So I'm just going to come in and add a little bit more icing, and it will flatten out. I just think I need a little bit more. Just going to move that around. We'll call that cookie done. It will settle on the tray. So with this cookie here, I was a little bit over this edge. So all I do is I take my finger and just against it, while it's still wet, you can see the icing sort of pulling away, and that will pull the icing away from the edge, and it's good to go. So we are done making these beautiful little cookies, and that's how we did the flooding. So make sure and watch out for my next video. It'll be out in a day or two. And on that one, I will show you how to do the piping and decorate these so they're really cute. All right, bye for now. My Mini Homestead.